Hi everybody, and welcome to another Manager 365 video. Today we're going to discuss the 5 conflict-provoking areas of language that you absolutely want to avoid when you're conducting a performance appraisal with a team member. Now it really is true that sometimes it's not what we say, but how we say something that matters. And setting the right tone and using the appropriate language can lead to a productive and engaging discussion as a manager during performance appraisals. Now here are 5 types of conflict-provoking language that you will want to avoid like the plague during your discussions about performance. Number 1, attempts to induce guilt. Nobody likes guilt. Don't be a guilt-tripping manager. Some managers, I'm not naming names, they think that their employees will work harder if they make that employee feel guilty. But the flip side of this, the paradox is that employees who feel guilty or made to feel guilty feel manipulated. So avoid using statements like, well, I try to help you, but you don't seem to appreciate it. Or, if you really cared about your job, you'd work harder than you did last year. Now, statements like these just don't work. Number 2, statements of mistrust. Now, these statements are comments that suggest to employees that you lack confidence in their capabilities, or maybe you're doubtful about their commitment to you, to the company, to their job. When you say things like, are you sure you can complete that on time? Are you sure you can do that? Or things like, well, I've heard you say that before, but you've never really delivered. Now, managers who use these types of statements, hoping that by some stretch their employees will get the underlying message of what they're saying, but they're not really seeing the desired effect. What's going on is they're breeding mistrust in that employee, or mistrust between the manager and the team member. Number 3, overstatements or hyperbole. Steer clear of exaggerating words such as never, always, or every time. Now, this is what something like this would sound like. You're always the first one to leave. Or every time I ask, you never have an answer. Now, the reality is when we use words like this and hyperbole like this, we stretch the truth and it puts our team members in a defensive posture. So avoid that. Conflict-producing language, Part 4. Comments that are centered exclusively in the past. Now, by definition, performance appraisals focus on the past. They focus on events and activities that happened in the past, but the purpose of a performance appraisal is not to humiliate someone, to make them look bad. It's really to focus on problems and opportunities, to look for ways to prevent those problems or to accelerate good things that were working in the previous year or previous quarter. So avoid saying things like, well, for years you've been sloppy in your work, or we've tried that before, haven't we? But it didn't work, and I don't think it'll work this time. If you stay well clear of these types of comments that really serve no purpose at all, you'll have a much more positive and productive appraisal with your team members. Finally, number 5, people-centered, person-centered comments that are demeaning and personal or directed at a member of the team that are evidence-free concerning behavior. These can be really destructive. They don't help in addressing the actual problem, the root cause issue. When we approach an appraisal and say things like, well, have you even read your appraisal? Or have you even read the final report? Or you never know what you're talking about and you don't know what you're talking about now. These sorts of broad stroke personal attacks, whether they're true or not, it's really advisable to stick to the facts. Focus on the evidence rather than ranting and raving and criticizing an individual, which might be based on your opinion and not on fact. So there you go. There are your 5 conflict-provoking articles of language or types of language that you want to avoid when you're conducting performance appraisals with your team. Good manager.